Okay. Hello, everyone. I think that says live. Today
We're
we're
on.
going to be launching our MAV, hopefully. So we're kind of loading up KSP at the moment. Got loads of mods, so it's going to take a while. But in the meantime, we'll kind of go around everyone, introduce them. We can let you know who's here with us today. So, oh, hold on. I've also got some feedback. Okay. Where was I? Oh yes, right. So I'm gonna go around the table, introduce everyone. Um, First off, there's me. I am Luke, also known as Highlad. I'm the public affairs lead for KSPtoMars. We've also got Sean Yo-Yo who's our project manager. We've got Pete, who's Sab Story. He's our kind of lifter design guy. We've got Sven, who's really useful. Has put so much into this project. He's our mission director. We've got Adam, Arrowstar. He's an Astro. And then we've also got Eamon, who's vaulting bassist. So, say hi, everyone.
Hello.
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 Howdy.
So, Sean, you want to kind of run us through what we're going to be doing today?
Sure, why not? I can't believe this thing's actually going to be recorded. It's going to be so weird listening to myself later. Anyways, so right now, as we said, we're... Oh, okay. Is Sven still there?
I'm not entirely sure.
Hello, Sven.
What is?
I just noticed the stream dropped. Did we crash again?
I mean, we're still streaming, but the KSP instance dropped. Did we crash?
Oh.
That didn't sound good.
Shit. Why
I was
does
live on the
this
stream earlier, by the way, so we didn't actually get to see the faces. So I'm Yo-Yo Sarian.
Yep, I'm Luke. Hi, lad. Yep.
Why?
Pete was just talking, but he was muted. There.
Yeah.
Your sub story.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's Sven. I'm the guy who's actually doing the streaming, and for some reason KSP just decided to crash. I'm doing my best to get it back up. So let the other guys talk a bit.
Well,
Oh.
I can tell you all right now that we weren't having crashes earlier. We were running just fine. We were kind of reviewing everything. We even did a very quick kind of test launch. If you were keeping an eye on the Telemachus data stream, you might have seen that happen. So we were running beforehand, but then we decided to just make one tiny change to the mod pack, or to tiny change to the mods we were using, and now we're getting crashes, which is certainly not a good thing. So I'll just be kind of looking through the chat and keeping an eye on what you guys have to say. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask them. We can answer them throughout the kind of duration of the stream. So feel free to ask questions. This stream's going to be about an hour long, and we hope to launch at least one of our rockets during that. From the testing we've had so far, the time step is really slow, so we might only have time for one rocket launch.
Well, just to go off of that, the actual plan for this launch, this live stream here, was to just go through the first launch of our lander on its way to Earth orbit. So there's 3 launches total. We're going to do those off stream. We're just going to show you guys the first one, which should take a while given the time dilation of how big this thing is. You'll see it in a moment. And then afterwards, tomorrow, we're going to go through launching the actual transfer vehicle into orbit. The lander will be, this is going to be like a 3-year gap in between the first launch and the second launch. So we're going to use the first Mars window to get a lander out. The second stream tomorrow, you're going to see us actually launch the transfer vehicle, which is going to take the crew out to rendezvous with the lander out at Mars.
Yeah, also, well, apologies for not having tons of stuff to say. We were kind of expecting to have the game up and running by now. If you've not already kind of figured it out, the way we're going to be running these streams, or at least this first one, we'll figure out what's going to be happening for the later streams. But for what we're going to be doing for this stream, at least, is running it through Google Hangouts and having the KSP instance, or whatever you want to call it, run as a participant in our Hangout who's going to screen share, and that's how you're going to be able to see it. When that's up and running, you probably won't be able to see our beautiful faces, you'll just be able to hear our voices, so you've got to get used to figuring out who's who. That's generally how we're planning on running the actual live streams or themselves. And all of them will be done here on YouTube, not over at Twitch. It just was easier for everyone involved to run it through YouTube.
And the live stream itself is going to be kind of low quality during the stream, but we're all going to post a full quality video of the stream itself afterwards. So it's actually recorded on the local computer, so you'll be able to see the thing as we're seeing it.
Well, maybe we could discuss the launch vehicle that we're using today to put the lander in orbit.
Sure.
That's your domain.
So essentially, the launch vehicle that we're using is something called an Energia Vulcan, when it comes down to it. It was designed, the Russians came up with in the 70s, that basically uses 8 of what we would know as the Zenit rocket cores, and a large liquid hydrogen core stage, much like what the SLS is today, but with a launch capacity of in the neighborhood of 200 tons. So that's it's quite a significant payload. And our crew vehicle and some of our smaller payloads are essentially same versions of that with fewer boosters. The crew vehicle itself is actually just a hydrogen oxygen upper stage on top of a single external booster.
And for reference, SLS, when it gets up to be its full capacity Block 2 version, will be 130 metric tons to low Earth orbit. So the vehicle that we're using today is significantly larger than that. And in fact, the vehicle that's launching in a couple years, the Block 1 version of SLS, will only be about 70 metric tons to low Earth orbit. So about a third of the payload capacity. So it's a big vehicle.
Yeah, I think the Saturn V could only lift, what, was it 170, something like that? Or
what?
I'm just trying to think. I think our rocket actually lifts more than the Saturn V.
Saturn V, I think, was significantly smaller than ours. I think it was 105 tons or something like that. Somebody could probably correct me. I'm not the smartest one here.
It really depends, because you're talking about what the fraction of the third stage that you are willing to use for a particular task. So it's not quite an apples to apples comparison as far as the actual design of the lifter. Stand by.
I think I'm just going to mention right now, because of my situation in kind of real life, that horrible place, real life, I might drop out once or twice during this stream, and in subsequent streams I just have really, really rubbish internet at the moment. So if I suddenly disappear or stop talking when I'm talking, then I've dropped out of the call and someone else can take over. I'll be back, though. I'll be back if I drop out. Hopefully.
So we have some data on why KSP crashed, and even though we are running on a Linux 64-bit install and having 16 gigabytes of data, we are hitting our RAM limit.
Wow.
So Pete and I, we are frantically working at reducing the RAM load, and then we'll launch it up again.
Okay.
That is thoroughly impressive.
Okay, folks, if there was any time to have classy elevator music, this would be it.
Well, so I've got an idea. If we're waiting, I'd be happy to go through the transport mission plan for
Yeah,
the
go
land.
for it.
Can I share my screen?
I believe you can. Yep, over the left-hand side of your
Screen share?
Yep, that would be it.
All right. Let's see. I think I can just...
A locker screen was pulled up.
All right. So, is that working?
Yep.
All right, beautiful. So, let me run through kind of what we're going to do after we get the lander vehicle into Earth orbit today. What you're seeing in front of you right now is KSP Trajectory Optimization Tool, the Mission Architect subset of that. Just a bit of a shameless plug. I actually wrote this myself. It's available on the KSP forums, and I do update it on occasion. So this piece of software you're looking at right here is basically capable of doing end-to-end mission design and analysis type stuff. And so I've set it up to put together a mission from Earth orbit. You'll see that up here, right? So we're starting in Earth, and we're going to get to our designated orbit in Mars at the end of this. We have a couple different segments of this this mission plan here. Let me walk through those. So, we start out in Earth orbit, and you can see we're going to have a circular orbit, the semi-major axis, fairly highly inclined, and that's just to put us in the right plane for departure, orbital plane for departure, that is. Now, we'll do a little bit of coasting, and then at some point we'll actually get to the transmarsh injection, or the TMI burn. TMI burn is fairly sizable. You'll see if I open up the maneuver here, it's quite large. It's probably around 37 or 3,800 meters per second total, all said and done. And it's going to take, if I got my masses right and my engines right, something like 1,100 seconds. So it's big. After that, we will coast out of Earth orbit and to the Sun, and then if we aimed correctly, we'll get to Mars. So we'll go from the Earth sphere of influence SOI to the Sun SOI, and then to the Mars SOI. At that point, we will coast to a specified place within Mars orbit. I think that it's a true anomaly. Yeah, true anomaly about negative 32 degrees. In fact, if I zoom in a bit here, so we'll coast to the end of this cyan segment, and then we'll start our capture burn. Capture burn is also somewhat large, probably about 1,000 meters per second, and that's all retrograde, right? So the idea is we're flying into Mars, targeting a particular Mars orbit, and then we're hitting the brakes at a very particular time so that we get a somewhat elliptical orbit around Mars. As soon as we've taken care of that, we're going to actually do quite a bit of coasting. So you'll see this purple segment out here. I zoom out some. We're going to come all the way around in a very elliptical orbit around Mars, and we're going to do what I'm dubbing the first Mars orbit adjust maneuver, MOAM-1. In fact, I think if I open it up, yeah, so a true anomaly of about 200 degrees, so well past Mars apoapsis. And that maneuver is pretty small, right? So the idea here is we're just trying to adjust our inclination a little bit. In fact, you can see the orbital plane really change from the purple segment back to the red segment. So really the point of this is just to get our inclination down. In fact, you can see most of the delta V is in the negative normal direction. So just plane change maneuver. And then we have one final maneuver. That's the second orbit adjust maneuver. I zoom back in here. And that is this maneuver. Let's see here. Let me change the colors around a little bit. So, all right. So then there's one final maneuver that takes place right at the intersection of the red segment and the orange segment there, and that is the second orbit adjust maneuver. And the point of that is simply to get us into our operational orbit, which is a spherical orbit with a semi-major axis of about 3,600 kilometers and an inclination of about 6 degrees. And that maneuver is pretty sizable, actually, because we've got to reduce the semi-major axis from that long elliptical orbit down to the circular orbit that we want. So you'll see there's quite a bit of negative, retrograde delta V, and then a little bit of plane change and a little bit of radial just to get the nodes set up. So So I've spent the last couple weeks working on this mission plan and the orbiter mission plan and a couple other mission plans that we'll be using over the next week. All of that's been done here in KSP Trajectory Optimization Tool in one way, shape, or form, and it's been quite a bit of time, but it's been fun. And if we can nail these burns, then we'll be on our way. So that's all I've got. I don't know if there's any questions from anyone or not, but.
For those of you who don't know, by the way, he actually wrote the Trajectory Optimization Tool mod that I'm sure many of you have used.
Yeah.
Highly recommended.
Exactly. That was brilliant. And I suppose it's kind of semi-important to mention, we're not at any point doing an aerobraking maneuver. It's all just straight up burning, I believe.
So the technical reason for that is there's a lot of risk involved, right? You miss by a little bit, and now you're not aerobraking, you're lithobraking. And the other reason is that we don't really have a great way to predict the post-orbit, or the post-aerobrake orbit, at least not in mission architecture. The aerodynamics model is sufficient for some aerobraking, but not really a lot. So just from a technical risk mitigation perspective, we decided to avoid that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, how are we looking with the KSP version thing? Are we nearly ready to start up?
We are trying to start up KSP again and crossing our fingers that it won't crash. We'll switch it on again and stream from it the moment we are ready to launch.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to hop over to Twitter and make sure that everyone on Twitter knows that we're streaming.
And there it crashed again.
So the only addition was MechJeb, right?
Yes.
Okay. Should we get rid of MechJeb?
That would be interesting.
Can we remove some of the orbiter-related mods that are not required for the launch?
We should. Maybe.
Just a thought.
So, Adam, we've got someone asking, why is the final Mars orbit at an inclination of 6 degrees as opposed to equilateral?
Right, that's an excellent question. So, the reason for that is that our landing site is at a latitude of, I think it's a little over 5 degrees. And the idea is that we want to be in a fairly low inclination orbit, but we also need to be in an orbit that passes over our landing site. So, in fact, let me share my screen again and see if I have that. Well, if I pull up the lander mission plan, I can find the exact, or sorry, the orbiter mission plan. Maybe I've got the landing site in there. I can pull up. Yeah, I do. All right, let me share my screen again. All right. Okay, so the site that we're going to is what we designated Site B on Mars, and it has a latitude of about 5.7 degrees. What you know about inclination, orbital inclination, is that the highest latitude that you reach is equal to the inclination of your orbit. So we need to have an orbit that's at least 5.7 degrees in inclination in order to pass over this landing site. And we need to pass over the landing site so that the lander can target it. I elected to go a little bit higher to 6 degrees to give us a little bit of buffer. I'm not one to skirt the bleeding edge of anything if I can avoid it. So 6 degrees of inclination, and that gives us a little bit of play on the bottom side. In fact, we could go higher if we needed to, 7 degrees, 8 degrees, and that would be sufficient as well. So we just don't want to go below 5.7. So that's why we're at a 6 degree orbit. Good question.
Awesome.
In fact, are there any other questions?
Um,
I can certainly talk.
not that many that I'm looking at right now.
All right. Well, if there are, let me know. I'd be happy to talk about them.
Most of our comments are just talking about the Kraken and how we have to sacrifice boosters to it and all that lovely stuff.
Right.
Okay, well, I think what we'll do is we'll take maybe 5-10 minutes as a break. We can just all go on mute and turn off our cameras and stuff, and the stream can wait for us for maybe 5 minutes while we try to sort out just KSP, make sure we're not crashing continuously, and hope for the best. If we can't get that working, if we can't get KSP working, what we'll do is we'll have to scrap the stream for today, and we'll just change the schedule a little, probably move it forward until we can, until we know when we can actually launch KSP, because obviously none of this is possible if our game keeps crashing. Okay, so if we're just going to take a short break, we will be back in, let's say, 10 minutes, so at past. I will see you all in 10 minutes' time.
You guys there?